Hi, my name is Mimi. I'm a CSA scholar.
My name is Steven. I'm a junior scholar at CSA.
My name is Pratik Patel. I'm the law school CIO, Chief Information Officer. I've been here 10 years, and prior to that, I used to consult to the legal industry, so I like lawyers a lot. And then prior to that, I was a mechanical engineer, building diaper machines and paper machines. So I've done a broad range of engineering, you would say.
Can you tell us some interesting things about your work?
So one of the first projects coming out of college when I was a mechanical engineer was I had to basically build a diaper machine. So you have to basically make sure the diapers don't leak. A friend of mine that I went to college with, he had taken the same classes that I did. He was actually working on figuring out how to drop equipment in Arizona because he was actually building equipment for the Mars rover. So one of the things I found interesting was that the same classes that we learned had it where you built diaper machines on one hand and you were building something for Mars rover. So you can imagine the difference in the use of the same skill set.
That's really interesting.
Did you face any challenges like to your career?
So few challenges. One is that usually when you come with a certain degree, people have a certain expectation that you're a mechanical engineer, you understand mechanical. If you understand physics, you understand physics. And so trying to get people to understand that really what I learned was how to solve problems and how to work with people that have a different skill set. So for example, how to work with electrical folks, how to work with civil. How do you work with everyone to kind of use their ideas to solve problems? That's how I switched from mechanical to computers. I used to work with people that work with computers all the time, and I realized that the way you solve problems is the same. It's the same thought process, you just apply different skills.
Yeah, we also noticed that in your bio. So what influenced you to change your career from mechanical engineering to law school?
So I have my mother's an electrical engineer. My father's a civil engineer. And both of them said, well, why are you going to do mechanical? I said, I wasn't going to do civil, I was going to do electrical. What I found was I didn't like mechanical in terms of, I wasn't solving what I would say the next generation's problem. If you think about mechanical engineering, you're solving the basic fundamentals of the plumbing in a house. I had a lot of friends that were going into computers, and I found it a lot more exciting. I saw that a lot of the work they did impacted more people. And so I went into the computer side of it, and I started working in legal, but I also worked for nonprofits. So I worked for a lot of, here in Boston, Catholic Charities, Archdiocese. I worked for them, and what I found was the problems we were solving were impact a number of people. You can actually change the experiences people have. For example, providing internet to a lot of the small communities in Boston was something I used to work on in the late 90s. So I enjoyed that aspect of it.
Did you face any discrimination in your childhood, basically, where you grew up?
So the town I grew up in, New Jersey, it wasn't what I say the most diverse communities, and so I think that in the beginning it was to try to understand how did people with different backgrounds interact. I approached problems a little bit differently than I found a lot of my friends did. I think it was only when I got to college is where I started noticing that when you have people with a wide variety of backgrounds, you can solve problems better. When I was describing my friend that went to work on the Mars rover, he was different background than I had. And so him and I had a lot of fun in college because we worked on projects together. And you can see that we can solve projects quicker. And over the years from my childhood to growing up, I found that the more diverse the group was, both in skill set, backgrounds, experience, we were able to look at problems in a different way and solve them, I would say, more efficiently.
That's true. But is there any specific ones that you can explain to us that diversity makes solving problems better?
So when I was a mechanical engineer, one of the first companies I worked for, it wasn't the most diverse organization. What I found was that everyone solved the same problems in the same way. And so, for example, if you look at the equipment, if you look at all the solutions that were built, they were all built as though it was the same individual. Only when did I get in there with a couple of co-ops. We had a couple of co-ops that had a diverse background. We actually started changing how we approached the problems. We didn't just take what someone had built and redo it. We actually looked at changing the entire process. It took a while for people to get used to that mindset, going in and having it where we're changing the status quo. Only until we showed that was successful did people start understanding that having people from a different background, different perspective, actually leads to positive change.
Basically, you said how diversity is important to solve problems, but in the world today, like one group of people are like conducting all the research. Like, why do you think diversity is important? I mean, how can we like solve it? What can we do?
I think it's basically making sure that groups and organizations start bringing more diversity into the office. So, for example, at the law school, when I take a look at my department, 10 years ago we weren't as diverse as we are today. I also look at how much more successful our department is in the last 10 years. And so the reason I believe we're more successful is we have brought in folks that come from different backgrounds. You had told me earlier that you came here from Haiti 5 years ago, right after the earthquake. I have an employee that came to me and said, I came from Haiti, we had this happen earthquake, brought him in, and he basically works on our staff, and he basically challenges the status quo of how we offer services. How do we think through how do we solve problems? The fact that our departments become more diverse and the fact that our departments become more successful, I believe the two are linked, because we're no longer having one mindset solve our problems. We have a different eye on it. The teams work in a different way. I see the same thing when I look at the generational gap between departments. When you have a department that has everyone of a certain millennium, you have the same solutions. But what happens when you take someone that's later on in their career and someone more junior in their career, you put them in a room together, they create more value. I believe the same thing happens when you have a more diverse background. That change is happening in different spots, but you can see the success happen when in the department itself.
I noticed that you're saying your workplace is so much more diverse than 10 years ago. Do you think this kind of change, positive change, is enough, or do you think there's always more room for improvement in terms of diversity?
There is more. I think 5 years ago, diversity was thought of being more around gender. And now it's gender's not enough. You now have to look at the race aspect of it. And so the change is happening across. And I think people are going to be looking at diversity over time in different ways. It's no longer just be the gender part of diversity.
Like, how did you know like which path you wanted to take like as a child? Like, if you wanted to go into science?
So growing up, my parents basically always made me try to solve problems myself. It wasn't, here, we're going to solve it for you, go figure it out. I have 3 children, and I do the same thing with them. So when they come and they have a problem, I basically hand it to them, I hand them the screwdriver and say, go figure it out. What I found is that it wasn't the specific part of engineering I liked, or a particular part of the sciences. I liked the problem solving. I liked having it where no one told me, here's how you do it. It's, here's the problem, go figure out how to do it. I watch my son do it now. So, for example, I'll tell my son, I need to change the doorknob. Here it is. Here's the doorknob. I bought it. Having him figure out how do you open it. What screwdrivers do you use? How do you take out the old one? He'll usually go pull his little sister in, and the two of them are pulling on the sides of it, right? It's that part of me I liked. I always like solving, figuring out what's broken. How do you fix it? I like that today. Usually in the office, the group knows that when there's a problem, I like going out there and thinking about it, and it will sit in the back of my mind, and I will process the problem until I can figure out how to overachieve it.
Do you think being with your son and daughters, they motivate you in your work field?
They do in 2 ways. One is I have a better appreciation for women in the workplace. My oldest daughter is 7, and I see how it's important that she gets treated the same way as my son in terms of how to think through issues. So they both have to fix the door. They both, when they get a toy and it requires the batteries and everything, they got to do themselves. It's easy for me to do it for them, but I want them to figure it out. I see how she approaches problems differently than he does. I would describe as more brute force. He wants to plow through it. She steps back, takes a look at the bigger issue, and then figures out how I'm going to tackle the problem, and then usually involves her little sister in it. And so I like the fact that they both approach problems in two different ways. They're both successful in it. And I think that kind of represents what I see in the office, which is having the diverse office actually allows me to take, groups that look at problems in different ways, combine them together.
And basically you're saying that in diversity is like important to like get to answers like faster and stuff. But in the world we live to the like USA, like big countries and stuff, have people like do most of the research. How do we reach out to other countries? Like,
So a couple pieces of it. I think one is here we bring folks over and they join my group, right? And so when they join my group, they're helping learn how to solve these problems. The challenge is going to be teaching young folks how the problems and having them go back and try to figure out how to replicate it. You can't scale doing everything here. I see it myself in my country. So for example, I have a lot of family that they've come here, they've gotten education, they learn how we tackle problems. They take those problems and they go back to these countries and they're actually scaling themselves out. They're teaching other people how to solve problems. And so I think it's a time thing, right? From a time perspective, we have to scale out to millions and millions of folks. But it first starts with teaching other people, not how to do what we do, but teach them this is why we're doing it and getting them involved because, when I think of my employees in my office, they're learning how to solve problems. They're not learning computers. They're learning how to solve problems. You can take solving problems back to wherever you're from and just reapply, and then you get a numbers game, right? You can start multiplying more and more. I have cousins that 10, 15 years ago, there wasn't the use of technology. It wasn't as prevalent, especially when you got into some parts of India where you're in the suburbs. They don't know what technology, they don't know computers. But once we started more people coming here to the U.S. learning these skills, they go back. It's starting to now expand there. The internet is now becoming more common further into the countryside.
This sounds like a very big and really far away goal to the world, like as globally as well, because right now there are not as much diversity as we need. And besides this goal, do you have other ultimate goals that you want to reach in your workplace?
So one is going to be, I think that we need to get more younger employees into the office. When you're in an institution like Harvard where you don't have much turnover, how do you bring new people in quickly, teach them these skills, and have them go off? So we're actually investing a lot into more of the co-op programs, the college programs that we can bring people in, train them on these skills, and have them go into these other institutions and learn. It's actually one of the things that we've enjoyed the most the last 4 to 5 years. So for example, we use summer high school students. They come in, they actually learn how to solve problems. And now they're not coming to do it at the law school, they're gonna go do it at wherever they end up doing their co-ops and working professionally. I want to scale more of that because that's what I walk away as in the success for the day. I watch these kids that come in, they work with us for 6 months. Yesterday was the end of the 6-month term and I had all 6 kids come up and they learned so much. And now they're going to take that to the next place that they go. For them, what I liked was we actually, with the size of the number of students that we have, we try to have a very diverse group so they can kind of see themselves how they work together. We make them do a video similar to what you're doing here, and they talk about what did they learn. And so that's one of the things I want to grow more at the law school.
Basically, you give your children the tools like to fix their own problems, and like they find out the path, like what they want to do. Like how do we people find what they want to do, their path?
I think it's just putting them in front of opportunity, letting them see it. I think, when I'm going to go back to the law school, I have people come in, take a look. If you don't know what people do in front of computers, how are you going to know if you like it? So just the fact you can see it, you have the opportunity to talk to people, you have the chance to ask questions, that's the best way to know, is that something you're interested in? Growing up myself, I didn't know many engineers except my parents. So if I didn't have them, I don't know who I would have learned from that this is a potential career opportunity. And for you two and for other individuals, it's really making sure that you make contact with people that are doing things that you don't know what they do. But you get a chance to ask some questions and you get a chance to find out, are you interested in that path? Today I was talking to our next round of co-ops that just came in. And we have some co-ops that have computer science backgrounds, so they're right now in their first or second years of doing computer science. We have a couple students that are doing liberal arts, and we have a couple students that are doing MIS. Things I told them today is I want you to go spend time in every part of the IT department. At least you'll know what you like, what you don't like. And then as you see things that you like that maybe you don't have a chance to do in your school, let's partner you up with them. Let's have you learn these things while you're here. I'm hoping that's what's going to light a fire for someone who maybe at one point thought they were going to do management information and decide that they want to go be a programmer. Because they're going to see these people, they're going to talk to them, and say, yeah, no, I am interested in it. So that's how I think people are going to get into these fields more.
There's definitely a lot of resources out there, but some of them, they're not reachable for people with lower income, or sometimes they don't even know it exists because there's not enough media exposure, and there's other factors that stops kids of the younger generation to approach, especially in the science field. How do you think we can change that?
I think it starts with us first. I think we have to do a better job marketing. Marketing what we do, marketing why it's important, because it's not just enough that that I do this work. It's important that I get more people to do this. When we talk as a department, we need to get out there more to the local community. We need to be able to say, these are the things we do, bring you in, give you exposure of it. So I don't think it's responsibilities for these communities. I think it's a responsibility of the organizations themselves to realize it's part of what needs to drive us. It's not just what we do on a day-to-day basis. We should be spending part of our time trying to go out into the communities and say, this is why this stuff's important, and give you a chance to come learn and ask questions for it. We don't do enough of it today. It's something that we definitely need to do more of.
The advancement in science is like a really big part of our future. Basically, it's making everything like efficient for us, but it's like also bringing some new problems. Like, why is science, like the advancement of science, has a more positive effect on the world than like the negative part of it?
Well, I think that let's pick a part of it. Pick engineering aspect of it. Anytime you create something new, there's the chance where there's some folks that are going to benefit from it right away, and then the folks that are going to see the opposite effect of it. So take something as simple as automation, right? For years, the world talked about automate. The problem is the automation has now taken away the potential for people to get jobs. And so the question is how do we make sure that automation isn't just itself? We have to add the next piece on top of it. We always have to make sure there's something that follows after. Going back to the areas where we haven't done a good job is, the internet and other aspects of it. The negative sides have affected folks. We have to basically make sure we understand any technology we put out there, what is the impact for everyone, and then what else do we have to do to mitigate it. It's not just the first technology, it's the second thing behind it. So for each one you put out, something has to come behind it to mitigate the negatives of it.
Someone has said before that the arts show us the future of science, and the science discovered the technical parts of it. And do you think media should have more exposure towards science to give everyone in the world a better idea of what science is?
So, one, I do see the arts and science coming together. If you take a look at animation, take that for example, the best animators aren't the best programmers, and they're not the best artists. It's both sides coming together. I have actually my niece up here right now. She does artist freehand, but she wants to learn the science aspect. She wants to do programming, but she's not a programmer. She wants to learn how to bring the two together. I think the more and more that the science are going to start pushing the arts, they're going to be forced to do the marketing of it. It's going to be required for the business to continue. The industries are going to stop working unless you have the science following the art, not leading the art.
Science is like an important part of like a world basically. Do you think there will be like in the future, science will like be able to solve like any problems, like for example cancer?
I'd like to think so. I'd like to think they'll be able to solve it. The when is the big question that we solve it. If you look at the pace of how some of the world's oldest problems have been solved, it's actually picking up. In computers, there's the theory of Moore's law. Moore's law basically says that processing is going to pick up at an exponential rate. I believe that exponential rates apply to a lot of the other parts of our world. If you think about how quickly we are solving diseases, we're probably solving them faster today than we solved them years ago. So yes, I think cancer will be solved. I think there'll be more things that will get solved, but it can get solved faster than they would have got solved without it. And that's the Moore's law effect.
I see what you're saying, because if you have more information before you, we have discovered more and more things. It's faster to make something new happen because you already have that previous information. But do you think when we do heal cancer, would that be good? Because would immortality in human cause other problems? When new problems are solved, new problems are created.
And actually goes back to the question earlier, which is what is the side effect, right? So longer longevity, and what's the longevity on the world population? And so again, we're not going to just have to solve cancer. We have to solve the longevity issue. So you think about issues around food. How can we produce more? Think about more production means more pollution. All those are going to start coming together. You can't just solve one of it. One creates other unexpected problems. They're just going to be linked closer together.
So basically, science like building us like a future where we don't have to worry about anything. Like everything will be solved.
I don't think that will ever happen. I think science will help us solve problems. We'll just learn what the next problem is.
Because as you solve problems, there'll always be new problems.
There's always going to be a new problem. I think there will always be something else. It's always, there'll be something to tackle on tomorrow. I always tell my employees, we solve problems today. That does not mean tomorrow everything's going to work. There's going to be the next set of things that we're going to have to solve. I just think that we're equipping ourselves to solve bigger problems. Some of these problems that we're solving today, we can never have taken on 30 years ago. But because we have been able to grow our ability to solve problems, it's not as big of a Herculean task anymore.
My last question for you is, why do you think science matters in our world?
It's how we improve. We improve our life. It's how we improve the next generation. I think that we have maybe not done the best job of tying problems together. Meaning that we haven't thought about the effect of some of our what are called fixes. And I think we're learning from that there is a side effect for everything, and that everything's tied together, right? You make a decision on one thing, it has an impact on something else. We haven't applied that in the way we solve problems overall. It's essentially where, I got 3 kids. I got three children. I believe that solving problems is going to be what's going to be more important in terms of how you see your day. When you go home and you say, look at what I've accomplished, it's not going to be the money. I think it's going to be solving problems. I see it now. I see kids today that are happier with solving a problem than the economic value of it. I think our values are going to change. I think the values will be not about the dollar, it will be about the problem. The problem does create the dollar, but it'll be more about solving problems and getting joy out of that. And for me, and being a father of 3 kids, it scares me that they are not going to be prepared for it. But it's important to me that that is what they strive for, because that's where they're going to leave their mark in life.
When I was like later, I was also fascinated by like the universe and stuff, like how people say that the universe is infinite. Like it's a question like people are arguing right now whether the universe is infinite. How can something be infinite? Do you think science will ever be able to explain that more?
So that's an interesting one. So being an engineer, I believe every problem has an answer, but I have to believe there's going to be problems that will never be answered, and that essentially will run out of time. And so the practical side of me says, doesn't matter, right? But then the thinking part of me says, well, then what's out there after? That's interesting when you think about that one.
Yeah.
It's one that my kids haven't brought to me. I'm not sure what to answer for them on that one, but it's a fair question.
Yes, I agree. I feel like even after we discover what universe is made of and the reason it existed, there may be something even bigger that we realize that we never realize now. And even back then, before people discovered DNA. They didn't know this kind of thing existed, and it was every time a new discovery is made, it's something that can improve our lives, and but also there's new things that we need to discover.
Right, and so I mean the DNA one's a good example. So as you get to the DNA piece of it, we learn something more, so we have more questions, and we go further and further. Is there a limit to it? Which I think is the question you have. I don't know. That's a theoretical limit. What happens if we hit that theoretical limit? I'm not exactly sure, but I don't think that's going to happen for a long time.